Heyo everyone, Misha B. Barkin here. Before we get started, we have our very first coffee pledges. Thank you so much to Zeke and Lex. If you would like me to say your name in a video, pledge a coffee. I'll read the names at the beginning. My coffee link is in the description down below. Also, apparently you can attach messages to coffees. If you would like that read as well, put read in parentheses when you pledge. Thanks again, you two. Anyway, on to this week's video. This video, as well as next week's, is going to be a lot more lax than other videos, mainly because it's nearing finals this quarter for college, so I gotta put more times towards that. Sorry. That being said, I'll still produce hopefully good quality videos. It'll just be more simple subjects to create videos for. Furry podcasts are becoming a bit more common recently, as with the pandemic, people have been looking for new avenues to contribute to the furry community. I myself am not much of a podcast guy, but there's an exception to every rule. Back in early January, I received a message on Twitter by someone by the name of Rain Raccoon, the talent director, fact checker, and many other things for a furry podcast titled Bearly Furcasting featuring Taebyn. He asked if I'd like to appear on their podcast, and after checking out some episodes, I accepted. So what is the Bearly Furcasting featuring Taebyn? As stated before, it's a furry podcast that's decently local to where I'm located, and they interview various furry guests from all aspects of the community. You've got musicians, outdoorsmen, dancers, makers, and furs like me who make YouTube videos. They started up the podcast in May while being stuck in quarantine, much like the rest of us were. Little tidbit, this was actually 3 months before I made my return video and started posting almost every week. Anyways, yeah, they've been posting episodes every Saturday since. Much like any other endeavor that someone has never done, their first few episodes aren't structured and very clean, but come on, when has anyone's first episode ever been solid? Hell, my first discussion episode didn't even have a background. I was just in a void. They decided to invite their first guests on episode 4, and I've had a guest on nearly every episode since then. They've definitely developed a structure, feel, and overall good vibe for this podcast by now. Lastly, what's interesting is everything is pre-recorded. As far as I can tell, most podcasts record everything live and leave it mostly unspliced, but the Bearly Furcasting will record it, edit it together to make it run smoother, and it shows. So where do I get involved? Well, one day I got followed on Twitter by the podcast Twitter page, then Rain Raccoon followed me on both YouTube and Twitter, and I remember thinking, I wonder if they're gonna invite me on. Sure enough, like a day later, Rain messages me. I know they had guests on, as I'd seen Taebyn share stuff about the podcast all the time, but had never checked it out myself before being invited on, and now I'm like, low-key hooked. Seriously guys, if you're doing something like homework, housework, or traveling and need something interesting to listen to, I can't recommend this podcast enough. This feels like a good time to mention, I'm not sponsored by the podcast. Other than my episode, I have no affiliation with them. I just feel as though it's a good enough program that I want to share it with all of you. Anyways, I want to talk about how the experience went for me personally. Well, first of all, I got invited to come on in late January, and my recording date was late February, so I had a solid 3 weeks to overthink everything under the sun. The day before, Bearly sent out a rough overview of the discussion topics, and I wrote down my answers and was ready to record. We all hopped on the call at the scheduled time, and it was a great time. Within minutes, any nervousness I felt melted away, and it was just like chatting with old friends. Speaking of which, I knew of both Bearly and Taebyn, as Taebyn's fairly well known, always being a happy, bubbly pup at conventions, including the one I went to, Spokanthro, and Bearly, yeah, I stole a video of his. Hey, it was very early on, and I was still learning. Now I make sure to ask permission when using things that aren't widely posted. Still sorry about that one, Bearly. So yeah, I appeared on episode 46, which went live yesterday, March 13th. The podcast is on a lot of different platforms, all of which will be listed below. Some notable ones are Spotify, Buzzsprout, and Apple Music, as well as here on YouTube, so definitely check them out. Well, here we are at the end of the video. I want to apologize really quick for my semi-spastic schedule in terms of posting. I'm in the final 2 weeks of school, and I'm trying to finish strong while maintaining a job, YouTube, sleep, music, and all with a brain that constantly has Take On Me by Aha playing in the background. But seriously, I got the next few weeks planned out. We should be back to Friday videos. Anyways, like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!